The professor didn't have to shout to control a room. He had been doing this too long for shouting. His control lived in smaller things: how long he held a pause, how he looked over his glasses, how he let silence hang until students filled it with nerves. That morning the lecture hall was full, the kind of full that makes the air feel warmer and the whispers sharper. 40 students. Advanced calculus. A class people bragged about surviving. A class that was supposed to separate the serious from the pretenders. And in that room, sitting near the front, close enough to be seen but not close enough to be invited, was a black teenage girl in a plain gray hoodie and worn sneakers. Her name was Maya Walker, 15 years old. Slim shoulders, braids pulled back with a simple band. A notebook that looked used, not cute. No laptop stickers. No expensive backpack. Just paper, pencil, and quiet. Professor Harold Bennett liked quiet students. Quiet students didn't challenge him. Quiet students didn't make him explain things twice. Quiet students nodded and took notes and accepted whatever grade he decided fit them. But there was a difference between quiet and invisible, and Maya was the kind of quiet that made people forget she was in the room until she did something that didn't match the story they'd written for her. That day, Bennett was in one of his moods. It wasn't anger exactly. It was boredom with a twist of entitlement. The kind of mood that makes someone look for entertainment in other people's discomfort. He had already made 2 jokes about students who should have stayed in easier majors. He'd already called on 3 confident boys in the back who loved hearing their own voices. The class laughed when they laughed. The class followed the script. Then Bennett wrote a problem on the board, an ugly one. A problem meant to be approached slowly, carefully, with multiple steps. He finished writing, turned around, and said, "Now, who wants to show the class how this is done?" Hands went up. Of course they did. They always did. Students wanted attention like it was oxygen. But Bennett didn't pick the eager hands. He scanned the room, eyes lingering on faces, and then he noticed something. Maya's hand was up too. Not high, not waving, just up. Still, like she'd decided she didn't need to beg for permission to speak. Bennett's eyebrow lifted slightly. He smiled the way people smile when they've just been handed an opportunity they didn't even have to hunt for. "Maya," he said, drawing out her name as if tasting it. "You want to come up and solve it?" A few students turned in their seats. Some looked surprised, like they didn't know she was even enrolled. Others smirked, like they were about to watch something awkward. Maya stood up calmly. "No dramatics ahí. Nos chaquinis." Just stood. Bennett watched her walk to the front, and something in his expression sharpened. He didn't like that she wasn't scared. He didn't like that she didn't ask, "Are you sure?" He didn't like that she acted like she belonged. She reached the board, took the chalk, and looked at the problem. Bennett leaned against his desk. "Go ahead," he said. "Show us." Maya stared at the equation for a moment, then spoke quietly. "You can simplify first by rewriting the denominator." Bennett cut her off with a soft laugh. "Oh, you can." He looked around the room as if inviting them to share the joke. A few students chuckled automatically, grateful to be part of the safe group. Interesting, because most students can't even identify what they're looking at. Maya didn't argue. She just nodded slightly and lifted the chalk. Bennett stepped forward. "Actually," he said, "let's do something else, since you seem confident." He turned back to the board, wiped part of it clean with the eraser, and began writing again. Not the original problem, something longer, something heavier. He wrote like a man building a wall. Symbols stacked, brackets inside brackets, integrals nested like traps. When he finished, the equation stretched wide across the board like it owned the space. A hush moved through the room. Even the confident students recognized this one wasn't normal. This wasn't a classroom question. This was the kind of thing you saw in old exam archives with red warnings. Not recommended for undergraduates. Bennett tapped the chalk against the board. This, he said, is a graduate-level problem. He glanced at the class. I usually assign it to students who are applying to top programs. Then he looked at Maya. But since you raised your hand, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Some students laughed. Not because it was funny, but because laughing felt safer than admitting discomfort. A few people looked away, suddenly interested in their notebooks. Someone whispered, "He's setting her up." Bennett's smile widened. 10 minutes, he said. Solve it in 10 minutes. The room reacted like he'd thrown a match into dry leaves. Laughter. Whispers. A few gasped. Someone muttered, "No one can do that." Bennett held up his phone. "And if you solve it," he said, voice smooth as honey, "you get an A for the semester. Not just this assignment. The semester." That got attention. Heads lifted. Even students who'd been half asleep sat up. An A in this class meant scholarships. It meant bragging rights. It meant doors opening. Bennett tilted his head at Maya. "You sure you want to keep standing up here?" That was the moment everyone expected her to back down. To blush. To mumble. To look small. Because that's what the room had decided she was supposed to be. A girl who tried to speak above her station. A girl who needed a lesson. Maya nodded once. "Yes, sir." More laughter. A sharper kind now. Bennett's eyes flashed with something like satisfaction. He handed her the chalk like it was a microphone he expected her to choke on. "Time starts now," he said, and pressed the timer. 10 minutes. The digits glowed. Maya turned toward the board, and she didn't write. First, she just looked. 30 seconds passed. A minute. 2 minutes. The whispers grew. She froze. I knew it. Why would she even try? Bennett didn't stop them. He fed on it. He leaned back, arms crossed, enjoying the slow humiliation. "You may sit down," he said loudly. "There's no shame in realizing you're in over your head." Maya didn't turn around. She didn't respond. She didn't flinch at the laughter behind her. She kept staring at the equation, eyes moving slowly, like she was reading a story she'd seen before. Then she lifted the chalk and wrote the first line. It wasn't a guess. It wasn't messy. It was clean, confident, like a step she'd taken 100 times. A student in the second row leaned forward slightly, brows knitting. Another student stopped laughing mid-breath. Maya wrote the second line, then the third. Each one connected. No hesitación. No irasing. 3 minutes in, half the board was filled. The laughter died off the way a song dies when someone suddenly turns the volume down. One by one, people stopped making noise because they felt something uncomfortable creeping in. Doubt. A student whispered, "Wait, she's transforming it." Someone else murmured, "That's not the method we learned." Bennett's posture changed. He pushed off the desk and walked closer. Not confidently, not casually. Carefully, like he didn't want anyone to notice he was suddenly paying attention. Maya continued writing, her hands steady, her face calm. No shaky breathing. No frantic glances at the timer. It was as if she'd accepted time wasn't the enemy. Panic was. A phone came out in the back row. Not to record yet, to calculate. The student typed quickly, eyes darting between screen and board. "Hold on," he whispered. Her second step. It checks out. Another student opened a notebook and scribbled her lines, trying to follow. "That shouldn't work," she said softly. "But it does." Bennett heard them. He pretended he didn't, but he stepped closer. 6 minutes left. Maya was rewriting the problem into something simpler, not by brute force, but by pattern. She was doing what Bennett always claimed was the sign of a real mathematician, seeing structure where others saw chaos. Bennett's mouth tightened. "Interesting," he muttered. Maya didn't look at him. She didn't need his reaction. She kept going. 5 minutes left. The room was quieter now. Not respectful yet, just uncertain. Students weren't sure if they were witnessing genius or a clever mistake that hadn't revealed itself yet. They wanted to believe she'd fail because that would restore order. But the board wasn't cooperating. For minutes left, Maya wrote another line, then paused. Not because she was stuck, but because she was checking something mentally, like someone tightening a knot before pulling hard. Then she wrote again, and the next step snapped into place. A student whispered, "Oh my God!" The words came out before he could stop them. Bennett's head turned. "What?" he asked, too sharp. The student swallowed. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was fear. Because if Maya solved it, something would shift. The class would have to rewrite the story. And rewriting stories is painful for people who like being comfortable. 3 minutes left. Bennett stepped right beside the board now, close enough that Maya could smell his cologne, close enough that his shadow brushed her writing. He didn't say anything. He just watched. Maya kept writing. 2 minutes left. Someone started recording. Quietly. The camera didn't shake like a joke video. It held steady like evidence. Bennett noticed phones. He hated phones. Phones turned moments into receipts. Phones made it harder to rewrite the past later. 1 minute left. Maya reached the final transformation. The solution wasn't long anymore. It was clean, reduced, almost elegant. Bennett's face had gone pale in a way that wasn't dramatic but was undeniable. The man who had been bored 15 minutes ago was now fighting to keep control of his own expression. The timer beeped softly. 47 seconds remaining. Maya added the last line. A simple conclusion. A final equals sign. The answer. Then she put the chalk down. "Done," she said. No laughter. Not a single laugh. The class had gone silent the way a courtroom goes silent when someone says, "Guilty." Even students who didn't understand what she did understood that something had happened. Something irreversible. Bennett turned to the board slowly. He stared at her work like it might change if he blinked. He traced the steps with his finger once, then again, eyes narrowing, trying to find the mistake he needed. Because if he found a mistake, he could make this about her arrogance again. He could restore the old order. But the mistake wasn't there. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "This," he said, voice lower, softer. "This can't be right." Maya looked at him calmly. "Check it," she said. That wasn't disrespect. That was invitation. That was confidence without cruelty. Bennett checked it again. The room waited. A student's calculator beeped quietly in the back. Another student whispered, "It matches." Another whispered, "It matches for me too." Bennett's hand dropped from the board. For the first time, he looked at Maya the way he looked at students he respected. And something in his eyes changed again, not into warmth, but into confusion. "Where did you learn this?" he asked. Maya shrugged slightly. "From books." "What books?" She hesitated, not because she didn't know, because she knew the answer would sound strange to people like him. "The library," she said. "The public one." A few students blinked, like they hadn't remembered public libraries still existed. Bennett frowned. "Who helped you?" "No one," Maya said. "I taught myself." That sentence hit the room harder than the answer on the board, because it forced them to imagine her alone somewhere, learning what they learned with tutors and office hours and expensive prep books. Bennett cleared his throat. "Maya Walker," he said, and the sound of her name was different now, less amused, more careful. "You have an A for the semester." A soft ripple moved through the room. Not applause. Not yet. Just shock. Bennett stared at the board one more time, then said something that surprised even himself. "And I owe you an apology." Maya didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply nodded and returned to her seat. And as she walked back, the same students who had laughed at her didn't know where to put their eyes. Some stared at their notebooks. Some stared at the board like it might explain their embarrassment. A few watched her like she was a different person than she'd been 10 minutes ago. But Maya was the same. The room had changed, not her. After class, the hallway was loud the way hallways always are, but the volume around Maya felt different. People spoke more quietly when she passed. A group of students who had never said her name before were suddenly saying it like it was trending. "Did you see that? She solved it." No, like, she actually solved it. He gave her an A. He apologized. He never apologizes. Someone laughed nervously. "Bro, I thought she was gonna cry." Another voice replied, sharp, "Why would you think that?" Silence. That was the first time anyone said it out loud. The uncomfortable truth sitting under the laughter. The part they didn't want to admit. Maya walked down the stairs alone. She didn't join the chatter. She didn't circle back to hear what people were saying. She kept moving because she had somewhere to be. She always had somewhere to be. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting. The campus looked clean and expensive, the kind of place where students complained about coffee prices while carrying laptops worth more than Maya's rent. She pulled her hoodie tighter and started walking toward the bus stop. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. "You out? I start shift soon." "You ate?" Maya stared at the message for a second, then typed, "Yeah, I ate." It wasn't true, but she didn't want her mom worrying before a night shift. Because Maya's life wasn't built for comfort. It was built for survival. People in that classroom didn't know that Maya's mother, Denise, worked nights cleaning offices downtown. They didn't know Denise left the apartment at 6 in the evening and came home around 4 in the morning with her hands smelling like bleach and her shoulders stiff from scrubbing things no one noticed. They didn't know that Denise's dinner was often a vending machine snack eaten, standing up in a bathroom that wasn't hers. They didn't know Maya spent evenings at the public library because their apartment was loud, because their neighbors argued, because the heat went out sometimes, because the library was the only place she could sit for hours without someone telling her she didn't belong. They didn't know she'd been teaching herself advanced math from donated textbooks and old exam packets that librarians kept in a dusty corner because some other kid might need them. They didn't know she'd learned how to solve impossible problems the way you learn anything when you're poor. You learn it because you need it, because nobody's going to hand it to you. Maya's bus arrived late, like always. She climbed on, scanned her pass, and sat near the back. Her notebook rested on her lap. The page was filled with tiny handwriting. Not because she liked being neat, because if she missed a detail, she didn't have anyone to explain it twice. Across the aisle, a student from her class sat with headphones in, eyes on his phone. He looked up and recognized her. His expression flickered, uncertain. A moment of wanting to say something and not knowing what. Then he looked away, cowardice disguised as politeness. Maya looked out the window. The city moved by in a blur. People rushing, cars honking, everyone acting like their problems were the center of the universe. Her stop came. She stepped off and walked the last few blocks home. The building she lived in wasn't terrible, but it wasn't the kind of place you posted online. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking. The lights buzzed. The elevator didn't always work. Maya took the stairs. Inside the apartment, it was quiet for once. Her mother wasn't home yet. Maya dropped her backpack, kicked off her sneakers, and went straight to the kitchen. She opened the fridge. Not much. A half carton of milk. A container of rice. Some eggs. She made herself rice with an egg, ate quickly, then sat at the small table and opened her notebook again. Because that's what people like Maya do. They don't celebrate, they prepare. Her phone buzzed again. A notification from the university portal. New message. Professor Bennett. Maya stared at it. She didn't open it right away. Not because she was scared, because she was tired of hoping. Finally, she tapped it. Maya, please come to my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. No smiley face. No congratulations. Just a request. Maya's stomach tightened. Office meetings with professors usually meant one of two things: praise you didn't trust or trouble you didn't deserve. She closed the message and stared at the wall for a moment, listening to the apartment's quiet hum. Her mother's shift would start soon. Maya would be alone again. Just her, the walls, and the weight of the day. And she thought, not for the first time, how strange it was that people only see you after you do something they can't explain. She thought about the laughter, how fast it came, how easy it was, and she wondered how many times she'd been laughed at without even hearing it. She went to bed early, but sleep didn't come fast. Her mind replayed the board, the equation, Bennett's face changing, the silence. Not because she loved the drama, because her brain didn't trust good moments. Good moments didn't last in her world. When her mother came home near dawn, Maya pretended to be asleep. She heard the door open quietly, heard Denise's shoes slip off, heard the tired sigh that sounded like someone setting down a heavy bag. Denise peeked in, saw Maya's braids on the pillow, and whispered, "Love you, baby." Maya didn't respond, but she felt her throat tighten anyway. The next morning, Maya walked into campus with that same gray hoodie and those same sneakers. But it felt like the air had changed. People glanced at her. Not many, not everyone, but enough. The story had moved already. It was traveling faster than Maya could. In the math building, she passed a group of students. One of them stopped mid-sentence when she walked by. Another gave a small nod, as if nodding could erase yesterday's laughter. Maya kept walking. She reached Professor Bennett's office at 8:59. She stood outside the door for a moment, listening. No sound. She knocked lightly. "Come in," Bennett's voice said. Maya opened the door. Bennett's office was exactly what you'd expect from someone like him. Bookshelves full of hardcovers. Awards framed on the wall. A photo of him shaking hands with some famous mathematician. A neat desk. A neat life. He looked up and gestured for her to sit. Maya sat. Bennett cleared his throat, as if even he wasn't sure how this conversation was supposed to go now. "I reviewed your work from yesterday," he said. Maya waited. "And," Bennett continued, "I reviewed your past exams." Maya's fingers curled slightly in her lap. "All of them," Bennett said almost reluctantly. "You've been performing at an exceptional level." Maya didn't smile. She'd learned not to. Bennett leaned forward. "Why haven't you applied to the honors track?" Maya blinked. "I didn't know I could." Bennett frowned. "Everyone can." Maya's mouth tightened. She wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was the kind of statement only someone comfortable would make. Everyone can. Sure, everyone can. If they know the rules, if they have time, if they have someone to tell them. "I didn't know," she repeated. Bennett tapped his pen. "Maya, I owe you an apology for yesterday." Maya's eyes lifted slightly. Bennett exhaled. "I thought I was teaching a lesson about overconfidence." Maya said nothing. "I see now," Bennett continued, voice quieter, "that I was making assumptions." He didn't say what assumptions. He didn't say why, but they both knew. Bennett reached into a folder and pulled out a paper. "There's a summer research program," he said. "Paid. Stipend. Mentorship. I want you to apply." And I want to recommend you personally. Maya stared at the paper like it might vanish. I can't, she said automatically. Bennett frowned. Why not? Because I need to work. Because my mom needs me. Because I can't afford to pretend my life pauses for academic dreams. Because I don't have money for transport. Because I don't have the confidence that if I fail, I'll still be safe. Maya swallowed. I have responsibilities. Bennett's jaw tightened. What responsibilities? Maya hesitated, then said softly, I watch my little brother after school. My mom works nights. Sometimes I work weekends. Bennett's face shifted. Not pity, something closer to discomfort. Because discomfort is what happens when privilege bumps into reality. He sat back, silent for a moment. Then he said, How much do you need? Maya stiffened. I'm not asking you for money. Bennett held up a hand. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering resources. Programs exist for students like you. Students like you. The words landed oddly. Maya didn't like how they sounded, even if they were meant kindly. Bennett continued, You have talent, Maya. Real talent. And I would be failing as an educator if I let that talent disappear because of logistics. Maya stared at him, searching for the trick, for the hidden condition, for the moment where he'd turn it into a lesson again. Bennett looked tired. Yesterday, he said quietly, I watched a room of students laugh at you, and I realized something. They were laughing because they thought you couldn't possibly be that capable. Maya's throat tightened. Bennett's voice dropped further. And if I'm honest, part of me assumed the same. That was the closest he would ever come to saying, because you're black, because you're young, because you don't look like the students I'm used to praising. He didn't say it, but he admitted enough. Maya said nothing for a long moment. Then, softly, It's okay. Bennett's eyes narrowed. No, it's not. That surprised her. Bennett slid another paper across the desk. There's a departmental scholarship. It was supposed to be awarded next month. I'm pushing it forward. It can cover transportation, supplies, anything you need. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she looked at it. Why are you doing this? She asked. Bennett hesitated, then said, Because I don't want to be the kind of man who only respects someone after they prove themselves in public. Maya held his gaze. Bennett added, quieter. And because you shouldn't have needed to prove yourself at all. Maya's chest felt tight, not from joy, from exhaustion, from the strange feeling of being seen and not trusting it. Outside Bennett's office, the hallway was louder now. Students moving between classes. Life continuing. Bennett looked at Maya and said, There's something else. Maya tensed again. Bennett's mouth tightened. Yesterday's moment. It's already spreading. Students recorded it. I've received emails. Maya's stomach dropped. Emails? Bennett nodded. Some students are praising you. Some are questioning you. Maya's hands went cold. Questioning me how? Bennett hesitated. Accusing you of cheating. There it was. The predictable poison that follows a black student's excellence. If you're too good, you must have cheated. If you're quiet and brilliant, you must be lying. If your success doesn't fit their expectations, it must be fake. Maya's voice was small. I didn't cheat. I know, Bennett said firmly. But others don't want to believe it. Maya stared at the scholarship paper, her vision blurring slightly. She hated this part, the part where achievement became another battle instead of a reward. Bennett leaned forward. Maya, listen to me. You are going to face people who will move the goalposts every time you reach them. Maya swallowed. And, Bennett continued, you are going to keep reaching them anyway. Maya looked up. Bennett added, Not because you owe them proof, but because you owe yourself a future. Maya stood slowly, clutching the papers like they were fragile. I have class, she said. Bennett nodded. Go. Maya walked out of the office. The hallway felt different. Not safer, just louder. More eyes, more opinions. And Maya realized something as she walked. Yesterday wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new kind of pressure. Because now the world had noticed her. And the world doesn't notice quietly. The same morning Maya left Professor Bennett's office, the campus felt like it had a new temperature. Nothing looked different. Same buildings, same students with headphones, same flyers taped to walls. But the air around her had changed. Eyes followed her in a way they hadn't yesterday. Not everyone, not openly, but enough. Little glances that stuck to her skin. The kind of attention that didn't feel like admiration. It felt like curiosity mixed with suspicion. She walked into her next class and took her usual seat near the front. She kept her head down, pulled out her notebook, and started writing before anyone could decide to talk to her. Maya had learned a long time ago that if you stay busy, people have fewer openings to poke at you. But the whispers still found her. 2 rows behind, someone said her name like it was a joke. Maya Walker. Then a soft laugh. Then another voice. No way that was real. Her pen kept moving, but her stomach tightened. She pretended not to hear, because engaging always made it worse. In Maya's world, silence was armor. Silence was survival. The professor of that class started speaking, and most students faced forward. But the whispers continued like a leak you can't stop. She had to have seen it before. Someone probably fed her the solution. Bennett looked like he was gonna cry, though. Still, 10 minutes? That doesn't happen. Maya stared at the paper so hard the lines blurred. She told herself she didn't care. She told herself it didn't matter what they thought. She told herself she had bigger problems than the opinions of rich kids who used impossible the way kids in her neighborhood used later. Like neither word meant anything real, but it still hit, because it wasn't just doubt. It was the familiar kind of doubt people saved for her. The kind that said you didn't earn it. The kind that said you're not supposed to be here. The kind that said, if you did something impressive, it must have been a trick. When class ended, Maya packed quickly and left before anyone could approach her. She made it halfway down the hall before a voice called out, Yo, Maya. She stopped because her body did that automatically when someone raised their voice. She turned and saw a guy from Bennett's class, Kyle Patterson. Tall, white, always confident. The type who spoke in class like he was auditioning to be the professor. Kyle walked toward her with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Crazy yesterday, he said. Maya forced her face neutral. Yeah. Kyle laughed lightly. No, like, insane. You embarrassed him. I didn't try to embarrass anyone, Maya said. Kyle waved a hand like that was cute. Come on. You know what I mean. It was impressive. He said impressive the way someone says interesting when they don't mean it. Maya shifted her backpack strap. I have to go. Kyle stepped sideways, blocking her path just enough to be annoying. I'm just saying, people are talking. Maya's throat tightened. Let them. Kyle leaned in slightly, lowering his voice like he was doing her a favor. Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but where did you really get that solution? Maya's eyes narrowed. What? Kyle shrugged, still smiling. I mean, come on. That problem? In 10 minutes? Bennett said it was grad level. Most of us couldn't even start. Maya felt heat rise in her chest. I solved it. Kyle's smile stayed, but it sharpened. Sure, I'm not saying you didn't. I'm just saying, people don't like being made to look stupid. And they're not gonna accept it unless, unless what? Maya asked, voice quieter, more dangerous. Kyle held up his hands. Unless you prove it again. There it was. Prove it again. Like yesterday wasn't proof. Like the board full of clean logic wasn't proof. Like the silence of the room wasn't proof. Kyle's grin widened. There's talk that Bennett might test you again. Like a verification thing. Just to shut everyone up. Maya stared at him. Who's talking? Kyle shrugged. People. Maya stepped around him. Move. Kyle moved, but he followed her for 2 steps. I'm not trying to mess with you, he said quickly, like he could sense the anger now. I'm just telling you what's coming. If you're smart, you'll be ready. Maya stopped walking and looked at him fully. If I'm smart, she said softly. Kyle blinked. That's not what I meant. But it was. It always was. Maya walked away without another word. She didn't breathe properly until she was outside. The wind hit her face, cold and clean. The campus smelled like coffee and new paper and money. Maya started walking toward the bus stop, her mind racing. She had a scholarship form in her bag, a stipend application, a recommendation offer from a professor who had just admitted he'd underestimated her. And yet, one conversation in a hallway had already reminded her of the truth. If you're not supposed to win, people don't accept the win. They demand replay. They demand explanation. They demand that you perform your talent again and again until they're satisfied, until they can decide it's real. Maya reached the bus stop and sat on the bench. She pulled out her notebook, not because she needed to study right then, but because the act of writing calmed her. The pages were full of dense math, but also little notes in the margins, reminders to herself, steps she didn't want to forget. Words like, be careful and check assumptions and don't rush. Her phone buzzed, a notification from a group chat she wasn't even supposed to be in. Someone must have added her at some point and she'd never noticed. The chat name, Bennett Calc Study Group. Maya stared. She hadn't been active there. She rarely spoke in any group chat because her life didn't allow her to be casual. But now messages were flying. She opened it. Kyle. Bro, she definitely had that memorized. Someone else. You think she cheated? Kyle. I'm just saying, it's suspicious. Another student. Bennett looked confused as hell. A girl named Tessa. Maybe she's just smarter than y'all. Kyle, okay. Then do it again. Simple. Maya's fingers tightened around her phone. More messages. Bennett should make her solve a different one. If she's real, she'll do it. Otherwise, it's a joke. Maya's heart pounded. They weren't just talking. They were organizing. They were building a narrative that would protect their pride. Maya typed slowly, carefully. Maya, I didn't cheat. I solved it. The chat went quiet for a full 10 seconds. Then Kyle replied. Kyle, no offense, but that doesn't prove anything. Maya stared at the screen. No offense, but you're lying. But you're not supposed to be better. But we need to feel safe. She locked her phone and shoved it into her pocket. The bus arrived. Maya got on, sat near the back, and watched the city slide past. She tried to focus on the math in her notebook, but her mind kept returning to that chat. The way Kyle's words had spread, the way suspicious had become the default explanation for her success. She got off at her stop and walked home fast. Inside the apartment, her little brother Jamal was on the couch with a controller in his hands, eyes glued to the TV. Jamal was 8, skinny, loud when he felt safe, quiet when he didn't. He looked up when Maya came in. Hey, he said, mouth full of cereal. Maya forced a smile. Hey, homework done. Jamal groaned. Yeah. Maya dropped her bag, went to the kitchen, opened the fridge. Still not much. She made Jamal a sandwich and put it on a plate. Jamal took it without looking away from the TV. Mama text you? he asked. Maya nodded. She's working. Jamal's face fell slightly. Again. Yeah, Maya said softly. Again. She sat at the table and pulled out her notebook. The apartment was loud in small ways. Neighbors arguing through the wall, someone's music leaking, the fridge humming. Maya tried to focus anyway. Jamal looked over. You famous? He asked suddenly. Maya froze. What? Jamal shrugged. Kids at school were talking. They said you did some crazy math thing and everybody was shocked. Maya's stomach dropped. Who said that? A kid on the bus, Jamal said. He was like, that's your sister? Maya stared at her brother. The story had traveled beyond campus. Maya's chest tightened. That meant it could reach her mother's workplace, people who didn't know them and didn't care to. Maya forced calm into her voice. It's nothing. Jamal smiled. Nah, it's cool. You made a teacher look dumb. Maya didn't smile back. Jamal didn't understand the danger of attention. He didn't understand that when you're poor, attention isn't just praise. It's a spotlight, and spotlights attract people who want to take something. Maya's phone buzzed again. A new message. Professor Bennett, please read this carefully. There's a rumor circulating. Come to my office tomorrow again. Bring your notebook. Don't worry. Don't worry. Maya almost laughed. Worry was the default setting of her life. That night, when her mom left for work, Maya sat Jamal down at the table and made him do his homework twice. Not because she didn't trust him, but because she needed something normal to hold on to. After Jamal went to bed, Maya walked to the window and stared out at the streetlights. She could see the corner store across the road, the bus stop, the familiar shapes of her neighborhood. It wasn't beautiful, but it was real. It was hers. On her desk was the scholarship paper Bennett had given her. The research program details. A stipend amount printed in clean font like money could be just words on paper. Maya wanted it. She wanted it so badly she didn't even like admitting it. But wanting things was dangerous. Wanting things made you vulnerable to disappointment. She sat down and opened her notebook. She flipped to the page where she'd practiced similar impossible problems. She'd done them for years, quietly, in the library, copying old exam questions, forcing her brain through patterns until they became familiar. She'd done it because math was one of the only things that didn't change depending on someone's opinion of you. 2 + 2 was always 4. A solution was a solution, but people weren't like that. People changed the rules, and now the rules were changing again. The next morning, Maya walked into Bennett's office at exactly 9 o'clock. Bennett looked different, less polished, less smug, like he'd slept badly. Sit, he said, not unkindly. Maya sat. Bennett exhaled. There's a meeting, he said. Maya's stomach dropped. What kind of meeting? Bennett hesitated. With the department chair and the dean. Maya stared. Why? Bennett's jaw tightened. Because some students complained. Maya felt her hands go cold. Complained about what? Bennett looked her in the eye. They're accusing you of cheating. Maya's throat closed. I didn't. I know, Bennett said firmly. I know you didn't, but they want a verification. Verification. The word tasted bitter. Bennett continued, the dean doesn't want a scandal. The chair doesn't want angry parents calling. And he paused, then said it plainly. I don't want them to take this away from you. Maya's eyes stung, but she refused to let tears form. Tears always gave people permission to pity you instead of respecting you. What do they want? Maya asked. Bennett glanced down, then back up. They want you to solve another problem. In front of them. Maya stared. Like, another public thing? She asked. Bennett nodded slowly. Yes. Maya's chest tightened. So yesterday wasn't enough. Bennett looked ashamed. It should have been. Maya sat back, silent. Her mind raced through images. People laughing again, filming again, whispering again. The thought of being put on display like a circus act made her stomach twist. Bennett leaned forward. Maya, listen to me. This is not fair. But this is reality. If we do this, it ends the rumors. Protects you. Maya's voice was flat. And if I refuse? Bennett's face tightened. Then they'll say you refused because you can't do it again. Maya swallowed hard. It was a trap. If she said no, she was guilty in their eyes. If she said yes, she had to perform for people who didn't deserve her effort. Bennett watched her struggle. Then he said quietly, I will choose the problem. Maya looked up. Bennett continued, they will want to pick something designed to make you fail. Something obscure. Something meant to humiliate you again. I won't allow that. Maya's fingers curled. Why are you helping me? Bennett's voice dropped. Because I started this. Maya held his gaze. Bennett added, and because I'm tired of being the kind of man who only recognizes talent when it forces me to. There was a knock on the door. Bennett's shoulders stiffened. Come in, he called. The door opened and the department chair stepped in. Dr. Elaine Morris, white woman in her 50s, sharp hair, sharp suit, sharp eyes, the kind of person who smiled without warmth. Behind her was Kyle Patterson. Maya's stomach sank. Kyle walked in like he belonged there, like he'd won something. Dr. Morris looked at Maya with a polite expression that was too smooth. Maya, she said, as if they were old friends. Thank you for coming. Maya didn't respond. Dr. Morris turned to Bennett. We need to resolve this quickly, she said. Parents are emailing. Students are upset. Bennett's jaw tightened. Students are upset because they laughed and were wrong. Dr. Morris ignored that. She looked at Maya again. Some concerns were raised, she said, gentle voice, hard eyes. We need reassurance that academic integrity wasn't violated. Maya's mouth tightened. I didn't cheat. Kyle spoke up too quickly. No one's saying you did, he lied. We just want to be sure. Maya stared at him. Dr. Morris smiled at Kyle like he was helpful. Then she said, here's what will happen. You will solve a comparable problem in a controlled setting. Faculty present. No outside materials. If you succeed, this ends. If you fail, she paused. We investigate further. Maya felt heat rise behind her eyes. Bennett's voice cut in. Elaine, that's excessive. She's a minor. This is humiliating. Dr. Morris's smile stiffened. Then perhaps she shouldn't have chosen to perform. Perform. That word. Maya's hands shook slightly, and she pressed them against her thighs to still them. Bennett leaned forward. I will select the problem, he said firmly. Dr. Morris turned her head slowly. You will not, she replied. We need a neutral party. Kyle's lips twitched like he was trying not to grin. Bennett's eyes narrowed. Kyle Patterson is not neutral. Kyle's voice turned innocent. I'm just representing student concerns. Maya realized then Kyle wasn't just doubting her. He wanted the spotlight back. He wanted control. He wanted to prove that yesterday was a fluke so his ego could breathe again. Dr. Morris said, the dean will attend. This will be done this afternoon. Maya's heart pounded. This afternoon. No time to process. No time to prepare emotionally. Just thrown back into the fire. Dr. Morris looked at Maya. Are you willing? Maya stared at her. If she said no, they'd call it admission. If she said yes, they'd watch her like a trap waiting to snap. Maya's throat tightened, but her voice came out steady. Yes, she said. Kyle's smile flashed. Dr. Morris nodded. Good. Then we'll proceed. She turned and left. Kyle lingered for half a second, looking at Maya with a smug expression. "See you later," he said quietly. Then he walked out. The door closed. The room felt smaller. Bennett rubbed his forehead. "I'm sorry," he said. Maya's voice was low. "They want me to dance." Bennett looked up, eyes pained. "Yes," Maya swallowed. "And Kyle wants me to fail." Bennett didn't deny it. Maya stood. "What problem are they going to choose?" Bennett exhaled. "I don't know yet, but I can guess. They'll pick something messy, something designed to confuse, something that looks like brilliance if you solve it and looks like stupidity if you don't." Maya's stomach twisted. Bennett leaned forward. "Maya, listen. No matter what happens this afternoon, you did not do anything wrong." Maya looked at him. "That's not how it works." Bennett's face tightened. "I know." Maya walked out of the office, papers in her bag feeling suddenly heavier than books. The hallway outside felt normal. Students walking, laughing, drinking coffee, like her world hadn't just been threatened. But Maya felt something else now, something sharp under her skin. Not fear, anger. The clean kind of anger that comes when you realize someone is trying to take away something you earned. And as she walked to her next class, Maya made a decision. If they wanted another performance, fine. But this time, she wasn't doing it for them. She was doing it so the next kid like her wouldn't have to, because she knew something they didn't. She'd been solving impossible problems long before Professor Bennett ever wrote one on a board. And Kyle Patterson had no idea what he'd just started. Maya didn't go to her next class. She couldn't. Not because she was afraid of the math never scared her, but because her body understood something her mind was still trying to convince itself wasn't happening. This wasn't about a problem. This wasn't about academic integrity. This was about power, about pride, about people who needed her to fail so their world could stay in the shape they were used to. She walked outside instead and sat on the low brick wall near the math building where students usually smoked or ate lunch. Her hands were cold even though the sun was out. She pulled her hoodie tighter and stared at the walkway as students passed by, laughing, holding coffees, living lives that felt lightweight compared to hers. Maya tried to breathe slow, for seconds in, for seconds out, the way her mother had taught her when anxiety made her chest feel like it was closing. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mom. "Denise, Jamal got school early release. Can you pick him up 3:30? I can't leave. Supervisor watching." Maya stared at the text for a long time. Her eyes stung, and she blinked hard until the sting turned into something else. Because of course today would also be one of those days. In Maya's world, big moments never came alone. They always came tangled with other responsibilities, other pressures, other people who needed her. There was never space to have one problem at a time. Maya typed back carefully. "Maya, I can't today. Something came up at school. I'll explain. Ask Mrs. Carter downstairs if she can watch him for an hour." Denise responded almost immediately. "Denise, is it serious? You okay?" Maya swallowed. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to protect her mother from worry. But she also needed her mother to understand why today mattered. "Maya, I'm okay. It's school stuff. Big. I'll tell you tonight. I love you." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. "Denise, I love you too. Be careful, baby. Be careful." Maya stared at that word, feeling the weight of it. It wasn't good luck. It wasn't you'll do great. It was be careful. Because Denise knew what the world did to girls like Maya when they stood out. Maya stood up and started walking. She didn't know where she was going at first, but her feet took her to the one place that had never asked her to prove she belonged. The library. The campus library was fancy. Glass walls, quiet carpets, bright, clean desks. Not the public library Maya grew up in, but still a library, still a place where you were allowed to exist as long as you didn't make noise. She found a corner table and opened her notebook. She wasn't going to study for the test they were forcing her into. That wasn't possible. She didn't know what problem they would choose, but she could do something else. She could steady herself. She flipped to pages she'd written years ago. Old problems she'd copied from abandoned textbooks, handwritten solutions done under dim library lights while other kids her age were at parties or playing games. She traced the steps with her finger, reminding her brain of the pattern that always saved her. Slow down, isolate, transform, simplify, trust the structure, not the panic. After an hour, Maya closed her notebook and stared at the table. Her reflection was faint in the glossy wood, eyes tired, face young, shoulders carrying too much. She thought about Kyle Patterson, smiling in that office like he'd won something. She thought about Dr. Elaine Morris calling it performing. She thought about Professor Bennett's face when he admitted he'd made assumptions. And Maya realized something that made her stomach twist. This wasn't the first time they'd done this. Maybe not with an equation, but with other students, other kids, other unexpected talents. How many people had been pushed out quietly because they didn't want to keep proving themselves? How many had decided it wasn't worth the humiliation? Maya stood and walked out of the library. She went straight to the math building. The controlled setting was scheduled for 3 p.m. in a smaller lecture room on the 3rd floor. When Maya arrived at 2:40, the hallway outside that room was already busy. Not full, but busy enough to make her skin crawl. Students were gathered in small clusters, whispering, pretending they weren't waiting for her, phones in hands, some filming already like she was a show. Maya's mouth tightened. Professor Bennett stood near the door, arms at his sides, looking tense. When he saw Maya, he walked toward her quickly. "You came," he said. Maya nodded. "I said I would." Bennett's eyes scanned the hallway, the students, the phones. His jaw clenched. "This is supposed to be faculty only," he muttered. "But it's not," Maya said quietly. Bennett looked at her, guilt flickering in his face. "No, it's not." Maya's hands were cold. She rubbed them together, trying to create warmth. Bennett lowered his voice. "The dean is inside," he said. "Dr. Morris is inside. They chose the problem already." Maya's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Bennett hesitated. It's difficult." Maya stared at him. "That's the point." Bennett exhaled. "It's a functional equation. Not exactly what we've covered, but connected enough that they can call it fair." Maya nodded slowly. Functional equations were tricky. They required intuition more than technique. They were the kind of problems that made brilliant students look stupid if they panicked. Bennett added, quieter, "Kyle suggested it." Maya's mouth tightened. "Of course he did." Bennett swallowed. "Maya, listen. Whatever happens, you're not alone in there." Maya looked at him. "Yes, I am." Before Bennett could respond, the door opened. Dr. Elaine Morris stepped out. She looked at Maya like she was assessing an object. "Maya Walker," she said smoothly. "Come in." Maya stepped forward. The room inside was colder than the hallway. The lights were harsh. The board was clean, waiting. At the front sat 3 faculty members. Dr. Morris in the center. Dean Robert Haskins to her right, a tall white man in his 60s with a tired face. Another professor Maya didn't recognize to the left, scribbling on a legal pad. Kyle Patterson sat in the second row, right in the middle like he wanted to be seen. 2 students with phones sat behind him. Maya's throat tightened. This was not controlled. This was a spectacle with paperwork. Dr. Morris gestured to the board. "You will stand there," she said. You will have 15 minutes. No phone, no notes, no outside assistance. Maya blinked. 15. Dr. Morris smiled thinly. We're being generous. Kyle smirked. Maya's chest tightened, but she kept her face flat. Dean Haskins spoke, voice calm. Maya, this is simply to satisfy concerns, he said. Once completed, the matter is closed. Maya looked at him. And if I don't complete it? Dean Haskins hesitated. Then we proceed with a review. Maya nodded slowly. Okay. Dr. Morris turned and wrote the problem on the board. It looked innocent at first. A function f, an equation, condition. But Maya's brain recognized the shape immediately. A trap disguised as a puzzle. The kind of trap where there were multiple wrong roads and one narrow correct one. Dr. Morris stepped back. Begin. Maya lifted the chalk. Behind her, she could feel the eyes. She could feel Kyle's expectation like a weight. She could feel Bennett standing near the wall. Tense. Maya didn't write immediately. She stared at the problem. A minute passed. Kyle shifted in his seat, a quiet laugh in his throat, like yesterday's pattern was starting again. Maya ignored him. She breathed in slowly, then out. Then she wrote her first line. Not a guess, a definition. Step 1. Test simple values. See structure. Force the function to reveal itself. She wrote clearly, slowly, as if she were teaching herself. 2 minutes passed. 3. Dean Haskins watched with a neutral expression, but Maya saw his eyes sharpen. He was following. He understood enough to know she wasn't scribbling nonsense. Dr. Morris's face stayed composed, but her hand tightened around her pen. Kyle's smirk faded slightly. Maya wrote another line. She tested another value. Then she saw it, an identity hidden inside the equation. A symmetry, a way to transform the condition into something simpler. Her chest loosened slightly, not because it was easy, but because it was solvable. She wrote the transformation. Her chalk scraped loudly in the silence. Kyle leaned forward. 5 minutes in, the board was half full. The room felt different again. Less like a performance, more like a trial where the evidence was being laid out step by step. Dr. Morris cleared her throat. Maya didn't turn. She kept writing. 7 minutes in, Maya had cornered the function. She had narrowed it down to 2 possibilities. She paused, then tested one more value. Her chalk moved again. Kyle's foot started tapping. Maya wrote the conclusion, the only function that satisfied the condition. She underlined it. Then she stepped back and put the chalk down. How much time? She asked quietly. Dean Haskins glanced at the clock. 7 minutes, he said. A tiny sound escaped someone in the back. Not laughter, shock. Kyle sat frozen. Dr. Morris stared at the board, eyes moving quickly, checking for errors. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She wanted a mistake. She needed one, but there wasn't. The other professor scribbling on the legal pad stopped writing. Dean Haskins stood slowly. He walked to the board and pointed at one line. Explain this step, he said. Maya's stomach tightened. Not because she couldn't explain, because she knew what this was. A last attempt to make her stumble. Maya nodded and explained calmly, slowly, like she was explaining to a child. She didn't rush. She didn't get defensive. Dean Haskins nodded. Correct, he said quietly. Then he turned toward Dr. Morris. That's enough, the dean said. Dr. Morris's face tightened. We need to ensure. She solved it in 7 minutes. Dean Haskins interrupted. His voice was still calm, but there was steel underneath now. That is not the behavior of someone who cheated once. That is the behavior of someone who understands. Dr. Morris's eyes flicked to Kyle. Kyle looked away. Dean Haskins looked at Maya. Maya, he said, this matter is closed. Maya didn't feel relief yet. Not fully, because she knew something else was coming. People like Dr. Morris didn't like losing control in front of witnesses. Dr. Morris stood, smoothing her jacket. Fine, she said, voice tight. Then we proceed to disciplinary action for those who made false accusations. Kyle's head snapped up. What? He blurted. The room went still. Dean Haskins turned his gaze on Kyle. You were the one who initiated the complaint, he said. Kyle swallowed. I had concerns. Dean Haskins's voice stayed flat. Concerns based on what? Kyle's mouth opened. No words came out. Because what could he say? Because she's black? Because she's young? Because she wears a hoodie? Because I can't accept she's better? Dean Haskins stared at him for a long moment, then said, We will be discussing this further with the Student Conduct Office. Kyle's face turned pale. Dr. Morris stepped in quickly. Dean, that's unnecessary. Dean Haskins cut her off. Elaine, it is necessary. If we allow students to weaponize accusations whenever their ego is bruised, we destroy the integrity we claim to protect. Dr. Morris's jaw tightened. Bennett's shoulders loosened slightly, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Maya stood still at the front, feeling the room's gaze shift again, not onto her as a spectacle, but onto Kyle as the embarrassment. Kyle's hands trembled slightly on his lap. Dean Haskins turned back to Maya. His expression softened. Maya, he said, you are dismissed, and I apologize on behalf of the department for putting you through this. Maya nodded once. She didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't. She picked up her bag and walked toward the door. As she passed Kyle, he whispered something under his breath. Not an apology. Something bitter. Maya didn't stop. She walked into the hallway. The students waiting outside went silent when they saw her. Phones lifted, but not with laughter now. With disbelief. With that hungry curiosity people have when someone's story stops fitting their expectations. Maya kept walking. Professor Bennett followed her out. Maya, he called softly. She stopped near the stairwell. Bennett stood a few feet away, not too close. Respectful now. Careful. You did it, he said quietly. Maya's voice was flat. I always could. Bennett swallowed. Yes, he admitted. You always could. Maya looked at him. So what now? Bennett hesitated. Now we make sure you get what you deserve, he said. And we make sure this never happens to another student. Maya's mouth tightened. Will it? Bennett didn't lie. Not if I can help it. Maya exhaled slowly. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another text from her mom. Denise, Jamal waiting outside school. Mrs. Carter couldn't. Please, baby. Maya's stomach dropped. Reality, always returning. She looked at Bennett. I have to go, she said. Bennett nodded quickly. Go, he said. We'll handle the rest. Maya walked down the stairs out of the building into the cold air again. The campus behind her felt like a stage she'd finally stepped off. But she knew the story wasn't over, because now there would be fallout. Kyle would tell his version. Dr. Morris would protect herself. Students would keep whispering. Only now the whisper would change from, she cheated to, how did she get that good? And Maya would still have to catch a bus, pick up her brother, make dinner, and live her life. As Maya ran toward the bus stop, she realized something that made her chest ache. She had solved the impossible problem twice. But the hardest equation wasn't on a board. The hardest equation was learning how to carry brilliance in a world that punishes you for showing it. And she wasn't done solving that yet. Maya ran, not because she was late, not because she was scared, but because real life doesn't pause for injustice. The bus screeched to a stop as she reached it, lungs burning. She climbed on, breathless, scanned her pass, and collapsed into a seat. The city rushed past the window, indifferent. Maya rested her forehead against the glass, letting the cold steady her. She had done it, again. But victory didn't feel loud, felt heavy. She got off 2 stops early and ran the rest of the way to Jamal's school. The bell had already rung. Kids were spilling out, backpacks bouncing, parents calling names. Jamal stood near the fence, small, scanning faces anxiously. When he saw Maya, his shoulders dropped. "You came," he said, relief naked in his voice. Maya knelt and pulled him into a hug, holding him longer than usual. "Always," she said. On the walk home, Jamal chattered about a spelling test and a kid who cheated at tag. Maya nodded, answered when needed, but her mind was still in that room with the board and the chalk and the silence. At home, she made dinner while Jamal did homework at the table. Rice again, beans, simple, enough. When Denise came home that night, she looked exhausted in the way only people who clean other people's messes for a living do. Maya waited until Jamal was asleep before telling her everything. The accusations, the second test, the dean, Kyle, the room full of eyes. Denise sat very still as she listened, hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "They tried to break you," she said finally. Maya shrugged. "They tried." Denise reached across the table and took Maya's hand. Her fingers were rough, nails short, skin cracked from chemicals. "I'm proud of you," Denise said, "but I'm also angry." Maya looked up. "Because you shouldn't have had to be twice as good," Denise continued. "Once should have been enough." Maya swallowed. "That's not how it works." Denise nodded slowly. "I know." The next morning, the video appeared. Someone had filmed the second test from the hallway through the open door. Not the whole thing, just enough. Maya at the board, the faculty watching, the silence, the dean saying, "That's enough." It spread fast. By noon, it was everywhere. Students watched it on phones between classes. Comment sections filled up. Some people praised her. Some doubted her. Some asked uncomfortable questions. But the story had shifted. No one was laughing anymore. That afternoon, Professor Bennett made an announcement at the start of class. "I owe you all something," he said. The room quieted. "I owe Maya Walker an apology," he continued. "And I owe the rest of you honesty." Maya sat still, eyes forward. "I underestimated her," Bennett said plainly, "and I allowed my authority to create a moment of humiliation instead of learning." Some students shifted uncomfortably. Bennett went on. "From now on, this course will change. No public shaming. No performative challenges. No treating curiosity like arrogance." He paused. "And if you think someone doesn't belong here," he added, "you should ask yourself why you're so invested in that belief." No one laughed. Kyle Patterson wasn't there. 2 days later, Kyle was removed from the class pending disciplinary review. Officially, it was for filing a bad faith accusation. Unofficially, everyone knew it was because the university didn't want his face attached to the story anymore. Dr. Elaine Morris released a carefully worded statement about procedural missteps and commitment to equity. She never mentioned Maya by name, but Maya noticed something. She was suddenly being invited to apply, invited to programs, invited to opportunities that had existed all along. She accepted one, a paid summer research position. The stipend was enough to cover bills, enough to mean Denise could work fewer shifts, enough to mean Jamal wouldn't have to wait alone after school. On the first day of the program, Maya walked back into the public library where she'd spent so many nights. Same worn carpet, same humming lights, same corner table. She sat down and opened a textbook. A kid across from her stared. "Are you that girl?" he asked. Maya looked up. "What girl?" "The math girl," he said. "From the video." Maya smiled slightly. "Yeah." The kid's eyes widened. "Can you help me with this?" Maya pulled out a chair. "Show me." That was the moment she understood what all of this was for. Not the grades, not the silence, not the proving, but the passing on. Months later, at the end of the semester, Maya stood in the same lecture hall where it had started. Same board, same seats, different air. Professor Bennett handed her a certificate quietly. "Thank you," he said. Maya nodded. As she walked out, she thought about that first laugh. How loud it had been, how confident, and how quickly it died. Some people think impossible means unbeatable, but impossible usually just means unfamiliar, uncomfortable, unwelcome. The class went silent that day not because a problem was solved, but because an assumption was. And once assumptions break, nothing sounds the same again. Final moral, exact competitor style. They laughed because they were sure. Sure she would fail. Sure she didn't belong. Sure the system would protect them. 10 minutes later, the room was silent. Not because of math, because certainty had nowhere left to stand. So the next time someone is laughed at for trying, ask yourself, are you watching a mistake? Or are you about to witness someone change the room forever? Because the people you underestimate today are often the ones solving problems you don't even understand yet.